it meant to the people in those days to have those miracles happen. You know, last week, Josh, he read the whole chapter 11 of the raising of Lazarus. And when he came to that part where Jesus says, Lazarus, come out, you know, nobody jumped up and said, hallelujah, he came out. Not a one person. I think if somebody had, we'd all look at him very stoically and say, hey, we don't do that here. But I guarantee you that there were no Stoics when Jesus actually raised Lazarus. There were people jumping up and down. There were people that were falling to the ground. There were people laughing and hugging and crying and just not knowing what to do, because you don't see dead people get up too often. And that's what Mary remembered that day when Jesus came to dinner. All she could remember were the men unwrapping the grave clothes from the face of her brother and saying, he's back. Now somebody might say, well, you know, how could she want him back? He was in heaven. And I do feel sorry for Lazarus. You think about that. He had to die twice. But for Mary, we don't appreciate what it meant for Mary. In those days, at that particular time, to have to go through life as a single woman was very, very difficult. Very difficult. So to have Lazarus back, it was a new lease on life for her. So she gets her brother back. And then the second thing is that miracle, that confirmed for Mary and Martha exactly what they had said before Lazarus came back from the dead. Do you remember what they said to Jesus? Jesus said, do you believe that I can raise your brother? They didn't really understand what he was saying, but they did make a beautiful confession. They said, we believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God. Well, when he raised Lazarus back to life, that just became cemented in their minds. There was just no doubt. And so Mary is at the feet of Jesus, and her heart wells up, and she says, I've got to do something for my God. I have got to show him that I am committed to him. I've got to show him that I love him. Now you think, yeah, this was pretty wild what she did. You know, a year's worth of wages. Well, we have these experiences once in a while, don't we? Not too often, but we do. You know, maybe we become infatuated with someone when we're younger. We fall in love. I think most of us have gone through that experience where we just, all of a sudden, something came upon us and we said, I got to go and get this for that special someone. And we run out and we get it. And we don't even look at the price tag. We don't even look at the charge slip when we sign it. We just want to get that item, whatever it is, and wrap it up and give it to that person. And all we're concerned about is their reaction. Like I said, that doesn't happen too often. And it happens even less in our relationship with God. In our relationship with God, it's very easy to be miserly, isn't it? Oh man, you know, this is going to cost me in time. God, I just do not have time to pray. Don't you understand? I got all these things to do. Besides, when I pray, I can't do things to make the situation better. I don't have time, God, to read the Bible. I don't have time to talk about these things, God. I don't have time to do things that you want me to do. Isn't that right? It's with me. Somebody asked me once, they said, do you have a hard time praying? I said, I sure do. I'm always thinking about what I could be doing while I'm praying. The wildest things, you know, things I don't remember for, 2 weeks. All of a sudden, oh yeah, I got to do that. When I'm praying. But that's the way we are with God. Why is that? Is it because we haven't seen somebody come back from the dead? I don't think so. Because, Jesus told a parable about that. He told a parable about a guy who rejected the Lord in his life and went to hell. And the guy says to Father Abraham, he says, Father Abraham, I got 5 brothers. I don't want them to come here. Would you send somebody back from the dead to warn them about this place? And what does Father Abraham say? He says, hey, they got the Bible. If they can't read the Bible and figure it out, somebody coming back from the dead isn't going to convince them. I don't think there's a miracle that we need to see. What is it that we need to see? We need to see our sins. You know, I bet you don't hear too much about sin normally during the week, do you? You know? And even if you go to a lot of other churches, you don't hear too much about sin. You hear it in the vague sense, you know, well, we're all imperfect, we all make boo-boos, we all fall short of the glory of God. But, you know, that's not enough. We've got to feel the full force of our sin. You know, somebody told me, they've been coming to church here for a while, they stopped coming to church. I said, why stop coming to church? You talk about sin too much. They told me. Oh, well, I can't stop talking about sin. Because I can't make sense out of life without understanding my sin. My greed, my self-centeredness, my pride. And I think you might have problems with those things once in a while too. This is what separates us from God. This is what separates us from other people. Until we understand how to deal with the evil in our lives, and to the point where we accept the fact that we are capable of as much evil as anyone else if you put us in the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong people and push the right buttons, we're capable of anything. So how do we do that? Of course, that's where the extravagant love of God comes in, isn't it? But until we really understand it, I mean, we can talk about God, we can talk about God and His love, but until we understand our sin and what it does to our lives, until we do that Lenten spring clean, it really doesn't hit. Now, this expression of gratitude on Mary's part, she didn't count the cost, did she? A year's worth of wages. Some people estimate that the perfume costs 10 grand, some people all the way up to 30 grand. Let's take the middle figure, $20,000. $20,000 she spends on a bottle of perfume. She doesn't say, well, I wonder, you know, this was probably a lifetime savings for her. This was maybe a gift that was going to be her retirement. Who knows? But this is an incredible amount of money, and she doesn't blink. She doesn't blink about just dumping it out on Jesus' feet, and it's all gone in a matter of minutes. Wow. But there are times when we can't count the cost. God doesn't allow us to count the cost. Let me give you an example. I've told you this story. Sometimes it costs a whole lot more than $20,000. I've told you the story about this guy who he was the president of a Bible college. Pretty well-known Christian writer and so on, and his wife was a very influential Christian leader. In her early 60s, she developed Alzheimer's. And it got to the point where somebody had to take care of her full time. And all of this man's colleagues said, well, you need to put her into an institution and you know, you continue to be the president of this Bible college because you're a great president. And he said, no. He said, no. So there is only one person who can take care of my wife Muriel the way she needs to be taken care of. And that is me. And he retired. And I think he's been taking care of her for about 15 years now. Did it cost her $20,000? Probably cost him $120,000 or more. But that's extravagant love. That's when we are truly starting to understand what God has done for us. And it's really interesting what this man says. He says, I don't want to put a guilt trip on other people. What I am doing, not everybody can do. I'm not saying that if you're really devoted to your wife and she gets Alzheimer's, that you have to do what I do. He said, but for me, God made it very clear that I needed to put my career at the cross and love my God. I love my wife. That's extravagant love, isn't it? That's real life extravagant love. You might be wondering, you know, what do you mean by extravagant love? Give me an example. You know, are we all supposed to go out to a perfume store, buy $500 perfume, and each week one of us goes in the bathroom at church, crashes it on the ground, and it smells good, you know? All right, I did my perfume thing. You know,